Respected teacher, dear brothers and sisters. This is a happy moment. I think due to changing conditions and impermanence, mm, Plum Village here in France, physically we had to close all our uh, retreats, like many people are doing, many organizations are doing around the world. And this is a great opportunity for us to look at new ways for us to share and share the Dharma as well as share each other's presence. So I think this is the first time we use technology where I feel, oh, it's so nice to see everyone, even though you're on a screen, but we know that in spirit, we are sharing the same moment. Uh, you're a little bit everywhere. I wish I could hear every one of you share where you are sitting, and because right now you are sitting with us, and I see all your smile, and I hope you know that we are in the room. We have Lower Hamlet, and we have New Hamlet, and we have Upper Hamlet, Sangha here. So those of you who have been to Plum Village, you are sitting with us. So please know that you are not by yourself in your room, in your apartment, that you just need to close your eyes and you're sitting with us. It's just a matter of a little distance. And this is so the present moment brings us and connects us as one community. And some of us are turning our heads to look at you on the screen. And this is something very new, and it's just a happy moment. And I think this is we talk about bringing communities together. This is a beautiful way to do that, and we hope to have more opportunities to explore this type of connection. So this is so tonight we will share a little bit in continuation with this online what is this mindful activism course or retreat. I hear you had Dharma sharing earlier. I hope that was enjoyable. I don't know if some of you attended. Some of you attended. You can nod your head. Yeah. Okay, that's great. This is a very so some of you had some sharings already. So now I'd like to share. I think you had orientation already. I remember looking at the schedule, and now I will cover a little bit about what it means for to have mindful activism. The word activism is very loaded, and so we need to you know. Sometimes it means like going out and doing something. So this is something we have to look at. In our tradition, our teacher, we use the word engage Buddhism or engage action. So engagement. And I think we all want to engage the world. And so this is something we have to remove the word activism as some participating in some kind of demonstration or something, but also look at activism as a way we engage and we are active with our world. And so, in other words, are we alive? Are we like activated? So this is another way to look at activism. So it's not like something you do, but activism as something you live and you're alive. You're activated, and this is very important so that we can merge the things that we do with our life, so it's not two separate things. And that's very important. So I hope that we learn more about how to reframe the word. Is quite loaded, because people ask us, how come you are not doing activist work? They ask Plum Village monks and nuns. It's like we're doing that every day. When we choose to become a monk or a nun, or you choose to come here to Plum Village, that is activism. You're actually choosing a different path. You're choosing community and so on. So they think like, oh, Plum Village, sometimes we get like, oh, you're just in the monastery, you're not doing anything, like, in fact, actually, that's the way we want to do activism, like do nothing. In fact, the current crisis with the virus is like making people really not be active, and it's quite good activism if you, I mean, it is a kind of activism not to do anything. So this is something, a very loaded word, activism, because it makes us want to like do be active, and we forget that sometimes doing nothing is also activism. And so it's a kind of medicine too. So in our tradition, mm, our teacher is shared from the movement in Vietnam in his during the wartime. He tried to combine activism and contemplation, so meditation. This is very crucial to understand the Plum Village tradition, our approach to activism or changing, being active to change the world. It needs to go with contemplation or meditation. So it needs some spiritual training and so on. So the word I used during his time was activism and contemplation need to go together. So in our time, engagement and meditation, or engagement and mindfulness, or mindful engagement. So today I will cover three uh, topics. One is sustainable activism, how to sustain ourselves in our engagement, in our aspiration. Whether you're a monk, a layperson, an activist, you need a way to sustain yourself so that you last. Because actually, most of the things that happen to activists and engagement and what people who are trying to help change the world is they burn out. And I think many of you have met, and many of you are maybe you are them, and you're here in Plum Village to recover. Or we've had wake up retreats where I've had in my group. Many people feel they need a break, they burn out. So how to sustain yourself, sustainable activism, and then I'll talk a little bit about communication in working together, and then lastly with community, and how we can do it as a community, as a collective. So I hope I am not too ambitious with that. I have maybe 40 minutes or something. So how to be sustainable. And I think when we talk about engagement, activism is, we talk about an act of waking up. Many of us, we wake up to something. We realize, oh, something is happening to the climate, or we wake up to our own kind of suffering, like the reason why we're running and keeping so busy. And we wake up and we're like, oh, now I know why. And so that moves us to take action to change. So the engagement is connected to a wake up. Many of us become monks, becomes social activists, environmentalists, and so on, because we woke up to something. We saw something, something in society or something in the environment, something with the animal, with the dolphins. So it comes with a realization, and then it moves us to action. And most of that awakening, it involves seeing the nature of our suffering. For me, I became a monk because I realized that I was such a very angry person inside, because I had a lot of anger towards my family, my father, my society, and it made me. When I realized that, I saw like underneath everything that I was doing, there was this kind of craziness, and I knew that there was a suffering that I didn't want to address. And I came to that realization in my first retreat. I started to cry a lot, and I didn't know why. It's the first time I slowed down and I actually sat, and it was in silence. And I don't know why, but I kept crying. So slowly, with the slowing down and the stillness, I realized that, boy, I'm really angry. I'm not happy, and that really moved me to like learn more about meditation. So you see, when we touch a suffering, whether it's in ourselves, in the environment, or in other people, or in a group of people, it moves us to take action. So it's actually the awakening, the wake up is to a kind of suffering. And I think all of you who are on the path, I think most of you probably have a story very related to my own story, that somehow you touch something in your relationship, or with yourself, with your family, with your environment. So it's a kind of wake up to a suffering. And with that, you find relief, and then you really touch a kind of awakening with what really happiness is. You kind of touch a peace. You kind of touch, so in a way, the suffering, once you are able, you're not afraid of it anymore, you're able to know how to be with it, then you can see another nature of happiness, another nature of peace, of acceptance. So those two go together. And I think many of you are aware of that the suffering and happiness, somehow they're very related. If we block one, then the other one is also blocked. But if we can really have the courage to look at it and to be with it, then it also helps us touch really true happiness. And so this is the basic formula of the Four Noble Truths. And that this is something, as activists, we need to really be careful of, to not be so busy that we don't have time to take care of our pain or suffering. I think I learned from the XR movement. It's very, some of the lectures from the leaders in the XR movement, it was important in their movement to actually really spend time alone by yourself in nature and so on, to really, come to terms with your fear, your anxiety, your suffering, your pain. And this is something I really commend them for doing that, to actually be courageous to not just blame it out there, but encouraging all the participants to really spend time with themselves and, come to terms with the possibility of, the end of it, the extinction. I mean, that's their approach, but at least is addressing some aspect that sometimes I see other movements don't address, which is the internal environment, the internal uh, happening of the activists. And so this is something. So from that, we wake up, and now we want to be involved. We want to let's change the world, right? And how do you do that and keep it sustainable? So it comes back with having a dimension of spiritual dimension. So it requires some meditation and some training. So when we say to have a contemplative aspect to your activism, it means you have to have time to look at what you're doing, to look at and take care of yourself as well. So you actually need to put out time. So when Thai was engaged with the peace work with the Buddhists in Vietnam, he already knew and envisioned a plum village. He called it the Fragrant Palm Leaves Center, Phương Boi. And that place was in nature. And Sister Chung Kong back then was involved with the School of Youth and Social Service. So many of us are like, in their 30s and 40s and 20s too, young, engaged, helping with the war in the destroyed villages. Thai knew that they needed a place to retreat, to actually replenish themselves, actually have time to nourish themselves. So the idea of a plum village was the seed was planted during that time. So the time to take care of the activists is very important. And so I think I think also in the XR movement, they have other volunteers or activists who I think they're like, I don't know what they're called. I read somewhere that they go around taking care of the activists. And it's like, are you okay? Maybe we take a break. We sit down, and so they take care of the people who are on the front line. Isn't that sweet? It's kind of like the nurse. It's like, are you injured psychologically? Are you feeling a little bit overwhelmed? So that's pretty cool. So that comes with the awareness that. That people who are doing these work are confronted with a lot of psychological struggle, the impact. So in a way, it's kind of like going in the front line. You get wounded, and you maybe actually get angry, right? And that expends your energy. So taking care of the activists. And so we need to, in the meditative aspect of it, we need to learn how to take care of our body and our feelings. So learning how to, a lot of us, we get so inspired in our work, we sometimes forget the rhythm of our sleep, our time to have rest, to take a break, to eat properly. So these things, I think, I don't need to go through. These are, I hope, each one of us, we have these habits. Once we get inspired something, we drop away taking care of our body. We work like late, and we do a lot of things that harm our body. So our mind becomes quite minimalized. And the other aspect is our feelings. Very important. Many things we are confronted when we are dealing with these issues. And we need to take time out to actually purge, I would say. Sorry to use like computer term, but we need to actually, meditation can be seen as a conscious sitting down and like following the breathing so the mind can actually let go of a lot of things. When it arises in meditation, something strong, what do? You say, okay, see you. I come back to my breathing. Comes up again. And so you also learn with the meditation practice how to take care of these emotions that come up. And this is also very important in our sustaining our movement. I just want to mention that during the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King and some of the other activists in the civil rights movement, I think some of you might know that they had a training program. It's called passive resistance. And they used to train in the basement of churches, young people, how to handle anger and handle discrimination, how to handle, like, people would come and come and pretend like they're getting spit on and attacked, and they have to train to sit still and not attack back. So they rehearse being confronted. So they were it's a different environment, or for some, but back then they were quite violent towards the civil rights movement participant. So they had to do some extreme training. And they learned this from, of course, Gandhi's movement in India. And I think we should follow suit and not forget that actually, if we want to go into a movement, we also need to prepare, just like athletes, just like anyone who is going to go to somewhere to demonstrate or to make a point, that we need to prepare ourselves emotionally and so on. And this is where the practice center, Plum Village, and the Sangha, the groups coming together, we can train this with meditation. So when you say mindful activism, the word mindfulness, we can learn to train ourselves so we can cultivate more of this energy of mindfulness and concentration. And this is something, I hope we can all contribute to. There's so many causes out there, and people need to learn how, especially the ones in the front line with fossil fuel coming up, and the corporate places, the banks and so on, that's funding. So a lot of these activist stuff happening, they're disrupting. So you're confronted with a lot of, so how to train to not react like they did with the civil rights movement protesters, right? How they train not to react, and how to be peaceful. So, and how to actually look at the other person with compassion and not hate. So you need to train that. And I think that's
saluer sans serrer la main et éviter les embrassades.
Oui. Welcome to France. So this is very important in our training, that we go to a center to train ourselves. First, to take care of our pain, to take our suffering, whether that's personal, ancestral, and so on. And then learn also to take care of ourselves, to nourish our happiness. And the third one, the very practical one, which I'll get to about communication, and how to not react, and now how to maintain your stability and not to lose your energy. And this is where I think, as a mindfulness practitioner, as monks, as lay people, as OI members, as Sangha, we can contribute to the movements. And we are doing that with, I think we had Sister Changduk and a few brothers and sisters went to an actual camp in England to help them learn meditation, do walking meditation, eating in silence, right in the camp where they were protesting the fracking company. So you can see our participation, what our role is. We can contribute to the mind training. And this is where I feel very inspired to contribute to. There are many causes out there, many groups. And I think our role is to, not choose any of those, but actually to feel them, to give them the practice so they can actually maintain their mind and take care of their body. That is, I think, our role as mindfulness practitioner. And I just quickly mention 3 aspects that our teacher has mentioned that is very important in our work. And it's very easy to remember. It's the 3 C's. And you need to remember this in any action that you get involved with. Ask yourself, is there compassion? And is there clarity? And is this courageous enough? What is it moving me to do this? Is it fear and so on? Or is it's coming from? So when you have clarity and you have compassion, you have true insight, what is happening, it gives you a lot of energy, and the courage comes from that. So clarity, compassion, and courage. Courage here is not like, going to battle, like, of a soldier. Courage here is actually doing the right thing. This is where, so the 3 C's, and we've used that in leadership, in groups, or any kind of engagement. They're very easy to remember. We need to ask ourselves that. So in terms of compassion and clarity and courage, for clarity is another word for insight. It's like Duk is one of the quality of a warrior, of a bodhisattva. Duk is have the virtue of insight and clarity. They know exactly, and that requires some, time off to look and reflect on what are you doing and what is motivating you, what is the intention. So when you have a clear insight of this movement, this action will, cause this, you have a strategy. And this is what's brilliant with Gandhi. If you, study his the way he is very clear exactly what they need to do, and he's very focused. So I think that's a kind of and so it's not dispersed. It's like, oh, salt, that's the problem. Fabric, that's, and it's very clear and very focused and very, how do you say, like a, a surgeon, like that. And it gets, so when you have clarity, you have insight, it's very efficient. It will create change. And this is something as, we need to learn how to harness that. And when you have insight, it's very powerful. When you have clarity, and I think we all have experienced that when we hear something very clear and very insightful, it it wakes us. It's an energy, is a force. This is something, or else it actually is very dispersive and it doesn't affect much. So to have insight, we need to cultivate, of course, the three energy: mindfulness, concentration, and that will produce insight. Again, back to meditation, back to having time. So you learn how to be present. So you learn, and this is not waiting for the activity to happen. So activism here, back to how we organize our life, we have to see, and it's like, how am I eating? How am I walking? How am I turning on the faucet? It goes back to our daily life. And so here is not sitting down thinking and having insight, but nurturing that activism in our daily life, and the insight comes from that. So the mindfulness and concentration is throughout our whole day. And this is what we do with a community or a practice center. So we create a culture so that insight and clarity comes up. So with that in mind, with your mind clear, you are more directed and you waste less energy. That is the why you have to ask yourself, because most of the time, if you're not clear, it's not motivated by insight, you're very dispersed. Someone tell you to join this, someone tells you to join that, and that's why we get burnt out. It's not very directed. And so this, me, I think, I'm learning too, being involved in Plum Village and all my brothers. There's many things for us to do, and how to focus our energy. So having clarity, compassion, of course, this is comes also from deep looking at the situation and going deeper. So compassion comes from looking at where is the suffering in this. And so we go deeper into even the perpetrator, the people who are causing the destruction, who are exploiting, and actually spend time with their suffering. So it creates in us a kind of non-dualistic, not a battle, a confronting, but more of a feeling that we want to complete the circle. So this is something very important. It's more sustaining. So clarity and insight makes it more efficient with our movement, with our action. So more sustainable, less waste. Compassion here is a better source of energy than anger. Some people do move from anger and it works, at the initial phase, but usually that starts to implode with any group, as I've experienced myself personally in being involved when I was a layperson in a lot of angry things, and it starts to turn on itself, each other, and so on. So this is something to look at. I know some people still always argue when we say compassion, they say anger. It's a good motivator. It changes things. It's true, might be for some short run, but compassion is also a powerful energy. It also moves us to act, but it's like a mountain. It doesn't run out. You can still include what you would call the enemy, because you don't see them as an enemy. You see them as your brother and sister. You see them, the police, the other perpetrator, the business people, or whoever you're seeing as, you see them having children, having families. So you need time to actually visualize that and create this common connection. So that cultivates compassion in you. And lastly, the third one is courage. Courage here requires some stillness. So courage here is very different from the normal understanding that we think that courage is. Courage is actually sometimes not doing anything, not participating, because that requires courage, because right now you're not fit to be involved. You're just too, right now you're not in that state right now. Your energy is not. So the courage not to be pulled away is so it's not about courage always, going and being out there, but actually courage is to be still. On the boat where everybody is like very frantic, frustrated, angry, and scared, and so on, and everybody's moving around. It takes courage and clarity to actually be the one who just sits down and says, it's not working. Let's just sit still. And to be the first one to sit still requires a lot of clarity and courage, because everybody's gonna go like, "Why are you doing this? Why are you sitting still?" Because you see the moving around, rocking the boat is not helping. So but to sit there and everyone yelling at you requires the courage. You see the inaction. So courage is not always action. Courage is also action inward. And this is something I've experienced in my life in this community. Sometimes a brother just doesn't do anything, doesn't say anything, and you hear him more than the ones who are sharing a lot in the meeting. And then you look over and you know what you need to do, because there's a brother there sitting and he's smiling. At first, I was very annoyed by it. I was like, why does he say anything? But you begin to value the presence, the courage to communicate differently. So I just want to reframe a little bit some of our ideas about activism, about courage, and so on. Courage is also to let go, learning to let go our pride, let go of our judgment, our blame. You see, those things, that's where when you blame, you lose energy. And I think you all know that. When you criticize, you're actually losing energy. Because as soon as you say it out and you think it, you feel a kind of depletion. It harms your heart, because in our heart there's something there. And I think we experience this with our family, right? When someone there's not harmony and there's this kind of blame in the house, the whole house feels like it's on fire, even though it's quiet, right? I think we all experience this growing up, right? Also, the courage to let go of our cravings and our attachment. And so our shadow side. There are certain things where we lose energy, and we all know what those are. Our addiction, our habits, our craving, whatever that is that has a power over us. We are a slave to that. So the courage to let that go and say, I'm not going to do it. So there's these other aspects that are involved that we don't see on the activists, on the front line or in the thing, but each one of us, we have that to let go of. And that requires courage. And it requires a lot of training and concentration. Every one of us has a shadow, and to learn to live with it and not have it, take all of our energy is very important. So the courage to have integrity, to have authenticity, those things. Many of us don't make it all the way to the path, not because of the movement or other people, but because internally we cannot master ourselves. And this is my experience living in community and being active with changing the world. And so those are some elements to help us be sustainable. I'll talk about a little bit about communication, the second topic. And I'll quickly go through this because I don't have the time. Anybody know? And what is this? When does it go to? We started at, sorry, time check here. Communication. How to maintain harmony as we work as a group. Many of the things we get involved with involve working with other people. And if you want to train to work in group, please come to Plum Village and train here for 1 year. We'll put you in a room with 4 or 5 other people, and then you will work, and you have to be on time, and you have the work corner on your back, and you have to really learn how to live in harmony. So this is a good place to train to learn how to work together. And I think community building is a great romantic idea, but the community building starts with living with roommates. So this is something I know is very true in Plum Village. So communication, we can start with being still and communicating with ourselves. This is very important in our communication with others. If we don't know how to communicate to ourselves, then the other communication is kind of useless because they're probably just habitual and reactive. So learning to be still, learning to listen to oneself, to listen to one's suffering and our true desire, our true aspiration. And actually listening requires learning to be silent. And so listening is not always about sharing and talking back and forth, but there's a way of listening that is done while in silence. So when we do sitting meditation, we do walking meditation, when we're eating, we are communicating, but it's not verbal communication. I call it the new NVC. I think many of you know the NVC, non-violence communication, right? We have Plum Village NVC, it's called non-verbal communication. So you need to learn how to do non-verbal communication before you do the non-violence communication, or they can go together. And this is very important in communication, because if you don't know how to benefit from stillness and quiet of mind, then you're probably not a good listener. And the way you speak is probably quite not so constructive. So nonverbal, learning to walk in silence, eat in silence. And one thing about meeting together, and there's a training in Plum Village. We do work together and we meet and we organize things. And I've learned many things, how it works here and the kind of training we get here. First, diversity view. We try to let everyone share. And then there's another attitude when you have Dharma sharing, is when you bow in to speak. It's not like I have a right to speak, but it's more like, please allow me to speak. So it's a little bit reverse. I was trained in a culture where it's like I have a right to say something, and I have a right to be heard, or like it's my right to say something. It's a very different attitude to train to say, please allow me to share. So you it's a little bit different culture to respect that, and you learn to be grateful that there are people listening to you. So this is something I learned from a way of looking at Dharma sharing. And there's another training is, and don't always be right. when you're working with group, it's very annoying. Like if a brother is always right, everything they say is always right, and soon they get isolated. So sometimes just keep your mouth shut, even if you're right, because if you're too right, then your pride is very high. So I learned that here, that sometimes you just keep your mouth shut. It's very hard because we always want to be the right one, always come out with the right idea, the right solution. And the other one is you always want to be the first one to say it. If you're always the first one to say it, it is really annoying. So when you work together, okay, see the courage, see the stillness. Don't always be the first one. Just relax. You don't need to beat them to it. And then soon you'll see that other people have the same idea. But for one who's, you always the first one to say the right thing, and the other one is to always to be the best. Someone says something and then you say something better. So working in groups, these three things are like first, right, and the best. So, like someone cooks something and then, some beans or something, the next time you make it better. And you don't tell them, but, you got better beans. It's a very special training in Plum Village. It's very reverse to actually it would not make a very successful startup training program, because it's to make a startup you have to be first, the best, all this kind of like leadership stuff. In Plum Village, it's the opposite. It's really crazy. It's like I learned that here actually. I learned to keep my mouth shut. Don't always be right, and don't always beat other people with better ideas. Actually, it's kind of really a happiness, not always to be first, to be the best, or to be always right. And that's very difficult. It goes against all the grain that I've been trained at in my culture growing up in great America. Yeah. And learning just to be there and not say anything, that's also a training. And also, when you work in group in communication, there's also, you go in the meeting and you go to a gathering and you discipline yourself to not contribute, to listen to other people, and you watch the contribution like ping pong. You watch a ping pong game, bing, boom, bing. I trained that here to watch a meeting with ideas like ping pong ball. See, so you when you participate in a group, don't get caught up with the drama. Just watch and see what happens. And it is so joyful. You have to train in this, because I get sucked in really easily, especially if it's about planning, about architecture, about fixing things. I was trained as an architect. I want to get involved with the planning of Plum Village all the time. So sometime I come in there and I say, okay, I'm gonna just watch. And you have to train that, because then you actually are cultivating. What are you cultivating? You're cultivating a stillness, a non-reactivity. The Martin Luther King training? This is the continuation, to actually not contribute, to actually not have an opinion. Wow. They say, did anybody have any more ideas? And, you have to press your finger really hard and say, okay, don't say it. Because, you got better ideas, And I have done this, and it is liberating, because, you leave the meeting and you're like, wow, I didn't get in trouble. And so this is a very communication. There's a lot of this happening, and it goes against a lot of our complexes. The three main ones: inferiority, superiority, and equality. I'll just quickly go through that. Inferiority, everyone knows why that's a complex, right? Everyone say, oh, you got a problem. you feel inferior, you know, and maybe you shouldn't feel inferior. But you know, superiority is like, no, you should feel, you have to have good self-esteem, right? In America, you guys have to have good self-esteem. You have the social life. You have a, you know, go to a health spa, and you have a go to yoga. I have a social life. My weekends are filled. Superiority complex. I am not a loser, right? So that's sorry, this is very my culture. Huh? I don't know if it's very European, but and then equality, when I first learned that, coming in contact with our teacher in Plum Village, and that really, I was like, what was that? Equality as a complex. And the thing that helped me realize it is Thai's teaching on the hands. You know, the thumb doesn't fight with this index finger to try to be equal. The thumb has its quality. This finger has a quality. This finger is very good at pointing. You know, you don't point with the middle one. Yeah. In some culture, you don't. In some culture, you don't go like that. You know, but you know, there's they all have a beautiful dynamic, and they are in harmony. And the other thing is the right hand and the left hand are not equal. They look equal, but the right hand can do a lot more. You know, I can do, you know, pull-ups and do basketball better with my right hand. I can write, you know, and the right hand doesn't say, oh, you're, you know, don't do anything. You can't even pick up a pen, right? Or like, oh, I feel so bad. Can I learn more? You know, so remember, if you have a problem with any of these three, you put your fingers together, and when you sit and meditate on the interbeing of your hand and the inequality of it. And so you can remove your idea of equality. You have to contemplate on the inequality. We are not all born equal. If you're born in Uganda, very different if you're born in Paris. And to try to force them to be equal to a young person, there's a lot of suffering involved. So that you can cause more suffering just by the idea of equality. Of course, if there's injustice, oppression, we need to do something. If there's suffering, we need to do something. But just be careful that you're not caught with ideas of superiority, inferiority, and equality, and make that become a dogma to fight for. Because the more you begin to do that, because it's all based on comparing and self. Right? Like, you know, you keep doing more, okay? You keep doing that, you cause the left hand more suffering to try to make it equal. But to find peace and see the interconnection, the interbeing between the situation and where we're at in terms of, so this is something to contemplate so we don't get caught in the notion, but also to bring justice and bring, to relieve suffering is a good aspiration. But just be careful that you don't make a dogma out of the three complexes and then fight for that, because then that might cause more suffering. So I'll end here with community, and I think this is our teacher's kind of mantra for the, you know, his whole life, to build community, and it's very important also in the Buddhist tradition to always build. That's the third jewel, the Sangha, the community. And I think for us to come together, I think we all know is you're here, and you know we're choosing to be participant in a community. I found that we have a place to celebrate together and to do things together, as well as to how to say, suffer together. So sometimes I have suffering, and I just go along, and other people are not, and I follow. Like walking meditation, I might be dealing with an emotion, and I walk, and I enjoy the presence of my brothers and sisters, and I feel that. And so in a way, the community helps us be sustainable. And this is very important in all these activism. They're quite, you notice they're kind of momentary. They're kind of like headlines. But I think we need to move from more focus, not just on these kind of like momentary thing, but more on more sustainable. So I want to use the word like movements to more like settlements. We need to have more sanghas who are embedded in the city, embedded in the countryside, embedded in places. So building more communities where people are not just engaging in activism issues and stuff, but they're modeling a way of living to represent the cause. And this is Thai's vision for Plum Village and for communities and for Sangha. We have many Sanghas out there, but right now they're all, where everywhere is living different places and they come together once a week, maybe 2 times a week. The next step for Sangha is actually start to create a practice center. So Thai called it the Mindfulness Practice Center, MPC. And Thai envisions it like it could be residential would be ideal if you can find that. So bringing the monastery into the urban area, into the area where there's a need. So starting to model a lot of this. And this is our next level of transformation. So young people are not going to churches, going to temples, going to mosque. Where are they going? Parties, whatever. But there's no spiritual dimension, community dimension. And I think a lot of young people are longing for a community. So I think as a Sangha, I think we should look deeply into combining and establishing a more settled movement. So a place, a physical place. You know, yoga, they have yoga centers all around major cities around the world now. Yoga centers. This is it's time now for us to create. So yoga center, you do there. I don't know, maybe they do have probably Sangha involved. But I think we can look at Sangha and model it after yoga center. So we can call it mindfulness practice center, where on the weekend we can offer for young people to come and to enjoy practicing, to play, to study, and to have many things to serve to the community. So this is a vision that Thai wanted for us to have, not just the phung boi, the fragrant palm leaves in the mountain or in nature, but to bring Sangha into the community, the urban environment as well. So imagine there's like in New York, LA, there's like little pockets of practice centers where young people can go there and participate and learn more about this practice and the different ways that we can support each other, the different causes. So this is the beloved community. And I think this is something we need to, there's a lot of negativity right now, a lot of despair, a lot of God, oh boy, what's going to happen to us? And I think currently with what's happening with the virus spreading around, it's helping, it's proof that if humans could, stop flying, we say, no, human, how could they ever stop flying? That would never be possible. But, Mother Earth said, yes, it's possible. And it just proves that we can do it. So there's I hope that this is an opportunity for us to really imagine possibilities. Imagine what is not imaginable. Like nobody can imagine that everyone is shopping less. It's like they call it a recession, right? But it's like great. My people are losing jobs. I'm sorry, but I wish we can adjust for that. But this is an opportunity for us as human beings to re-envision, I think, what it means for us. Are we meant to just work, shop, and move around. And so I think this is an invitation for all the activists out there and people who are involved with causes to really think about building, look somewhere in your neighborhood, in your place, to actually create a physical center of refuge. This is our, beyond activism and movements, we move into settlements and community centers. So it's just not always waiting to do activist stuff, but actually the community needs to model that. And that's what we're trying to do here in Plum Village. Many lay friends are coming and living near here, and I wouldn't blame them, because it's a good place to be, and we hope that there'll be more places like that for us to not just be activists, but to be active in modeling our life. And I think this is the message I want to share mostly, is that let's let us be alive, and let us engage, and let us help realize a different way of being in the world besides just working, spending, and so on. And this is a great opportunity, this moment of stillness for humanity. There's a lot of suffering, and we have to look into that, and what are the causes of that suffering, and look at the fear that we have, so we can turn that mud into compassion. This is very important, that we don't blame, and we use this time. So recently I heard a brother share that the word coronavirus, we need to cure it with karuna virus, like metta karuna, yeah, karuna virus. I told the sisters, some of the nuns, to come up with a song and a dance, so we can make it go viral, like karuna, karuna, spread the karuna, don't be afraid, touch my face. We can make a rap, huh? So this is the medicine for you to make, let's, also, make people smile when we go out there, yeah? Don't touch them, and don't be so close, but don't cough, but, and this is, I think, what it means, coronavirus. I hope everyone can maintain that, maintain compassion. During times like this, when the economy is low, there's a lot of depression and a lot of suicide. So this is something to be aware of, to also nourish our compassion for people who are not privileged, and they are not have the resource that we do here. And so this is something we can send that energy towards all those families, the countries that don't have as much as we do, the choices that we have. So this is something I'd like to invite all of us to. That is a kind of activist, to actually send that energy, and that is not lost. So thank you for gathering, and it's so nice. This is I wish you can go all night, but I know you need to sleep. And I would love to hear all my brothers and sisters from where, oh wow, there's a new hamlet, Daonim too, huh? Some nuns there. Wow. That is so cool. Wow. Can you then you let them show them the room here in Upper Hamlet. Can we spend a few moments just to celebrate our togetherness, right? Wow, hello! Karuna virus. Long live Karuna. Daongin, come up with a dance for Karuna virus, okay? Yeah, there we go. Don't be afraid. I won't touch you with my hand, but with my heart. Yeah. Wow. Thank you, everyone. Brother Pham Han, you want to take over? How did everyone experience? It was good. You can put thumbs up. It's not as bad, huh? Using technology like this. This is our sangha from Upper Hamlet, New Hamlet, Sung Ha. Wow. Anyone?
Can we do it again with you?
Em bỏ grid đi.
Thank you so much, dear Thai, for these inspiring words. Maybe before making some announcements, we can first listen to a sound of the bell.